Hey, Matthew.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see your face.
I feel like it's been forever.
It has
So,
been forever.
yeah, I
You are
catch up
one
with
of,
you on Boxer once in a while. So,
I know, you
yeah.
are one of my friends, and I have a lot of friends like this where we don't live close, but I always see you a couple times a year somehow.
Yeah.
But then with the pandemic, it's like I haven't seen all my friends in a really
Yeah.
long time.
And we're all in our own little world, so like it's
Mhm.
hard to connect. Like even just for a little bit of face-to-face time,
Yes.
there's certainly moments when you do and you try, but like it's we've all been so like focused on what's going on in our worlds.
I
So,
know. Well, you were one of my few friends that like we were trying to do regular Zooms at
yeah.
the beginning. Like we
Yeah.
were we gave it the
We
college
did.
try. We were but then I don't know about you either. Like I'm so over Zoom. I don't want to, I mean, I know we're sitting here chatting on it, but like I don't when I get an invitation for like an online, you
I don't
know,
want to I
I'm
don't
like,
want to do
no,
any of it. Like
no.
it is and it's and the thing is you don't get the same connection out of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's not the same kind of fulfillment.
it's
Certainly
not.
in the beginning it was nice to kind of just do those things. But like companies that have like, their happy hour
Yeah.
times on Zoom, I don't fully comprehend that. Like
Mm-mm.
that feels like work.
No, it does because we're
Yeah.
sitting here, and now that I'm seeing clients again on Zoom, it literally feels like work.
Oh, totally.
Like,
Right. I mean, it's funny because I'm on the other end of that.
yeah,
And that's one I kind of like, I have enjoyed the counseling experience with the Zoom call or on the internet.
yeah, I
There's,
actually have too.
yeah,
It's interesting.
there's something about it that just has made it, I don't know, has made it safe or feel okay.
Yeah.
You
I
know what I
think
mean?
it's really nice for people to be in their own homes while they do
Yeah.
therapy. Like they're in their seat, they're in their couch, like they're not in a stuffy office. Yeah, I've been really surprised at how well it works,
Yeah.
actually. I might stick to it. Like, hey,
There are
I'm at home,
some.
you're at home. I'm not paying for an office.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see to what degree the
Uh-huh.
pandemic changes how we do everyday things, like
I
the
know.
stuff.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about your new book. It's called What is God Like? And it
Yes.
is a really interesting backstory. And I want to talk, for the people listening, which I don't know how many that will be, but I know some people will be like, I have no idea what this book is. I don't know who
Yeah.
Rachel Held Evans is. I don't know who Matthew Paul Turner is.
Yeah.
Two, three name people. But
Yeah.
but so talk to me about, you've written a children's book
Mhm,
with our friend Rachel Held Evans. So let's just talk
mhm.
for a minute. Who is Rachel Held Evans for people who do not know?
Yeah. Well, Rachel, I met Rachel in 2008,
Hmm.
right before a year, 18 months before she released her first book.
Hmm.
Which Jason, our friend Jason Boyette introduced us actually,
Oh,
like
that's so
over
funny.
Gmail, like
Yeah.
and so I have been a fan of her. Like Rachel came for what Rachel ended up doing, becoming such a powerful progressive voice of about regarding culture and theology and um progressivism. Like there's just like she came into the scene at like the exact right time, and she had enough savvy that she was able to come up with catchy ideas for books, and yet was had a simplicity about her that
Yeah.
made her approachable, like that
Yes, she
made
did.
her feel like you could just walk up to her
Hmm.
and hug her.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like the buzz about Rachel was way more grandiose than what you would ever see in person. Like
I completely agree.
she's just, there was a simple humility about her that was just infectious and
Yeah.
contagious and really cool. And but sadly, 2 years ago, like we were 2 years ago, right at this time,
Hmm.
um, she became sick right around April 15th, and she never got better. Yeah. And 3.5 weeks later, she lost her battle to whatever it is. I mean, we still don't fully know. But
and it was very unexpected, like just completely unexpected. It was, oh, Rachel's going to the hospital. This is weird. She's got an infection. And then it was, they've had to put her in a coma. And then she's struggling to come out of the coma.
Switched to two. She went to 3 hospitals.
Yeah. And within a very short time, it was just very shocking, very unexpected. She was just a healthy mom of 2,
I mean, way younger than you or me. I mean, like 37. She was, it made no sense. And she was still, she had very young children. But I think that what people don't realize is just how influential she really was. Rachel sat on, the faith board for President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
She was, invited to speak at some very major conventions and, all those. She just had a way about her that connected with people and I don't know if anyone could actually do that now. She just happened at the right time. It's, when I just remember whenever there was a big event that was happening that, all of us, we were all blogging at that point. Okay. And so early on, I remember thinking that if there was something I wanted to cover it before Rachel, because I know she would do it better than me.
Her take would be the most succinct, the most brilliant. She would find a nuance that you wanted to read what she had to say. And
it would be researched, and mine, and it wouldn't it would be taken very seriously. And I think that she knew, she had almost as many critics as she did. Fans. And so I think that she over prepared.
Yeah.
In some cases,
she kind of had to.
Right. Yeah. And because she was in that theology circle, and which is very, driven and controlled by white men. And so it just, she did her homework. And so anyway, I literally would sit and think, I've got to get something out before she does, because everyone, that's going to be the take everyone wants.
Totally. Because at the time you were writing about Christian culture too.
Right. Yeah. And so Rachel and I, our careers and our friendship kind of built alongside of each other, because we were both bloggers. Influential in our own place, but we were also shared the commonality that we weren't pastors. So we could say things that other people wouldn't say, or couldn't say, because there was something behind them that kept them from.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah.
And so and what Rachel did is Rachel elevated voices. She elevated voices that we needed to hear. She introduced us to people that we needed to become familiar with.
Every Sunday she would post a list of links to these thoughtful pieces. And that is how I discovered so many other writers and thinkers. And then, if she ever put your post, a few times she put mine in, it would be oh my gosh.
You just something
I read, she likes me.
I know. It really was.
It was such a high honor.
Yeah. And so, but she, I just remember going back into when Rachel died, I searched her name in my emails, and I would find emails at very particular moments in my life and her just reaching out and just saying, "Hey, I'm just thinking about you today. Yeah. And I just want you to know I'm praying for you," or whatever. She wasn't let me tag you on Instagram and let everybody know that I am praying for you.
Yes.
It was a humble friendship and a humble support.
Yeah.
And I think that lots of her friends can do that, where they can go back and find messages from her
Yeah.
at very specific times, because that's how she
100%.
connected with people. And
Yeah.
so anyway, when she passed away, like the amount of people that mourned her passing was just, it was overwhelming. Like, I mean, she was trending on Twitter. Like Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton both, mourned her, and other like really well-known names. And so it was just, it was really beautiful and powerful to see just how far, and I don't know if I've shared this with you. I know that you wanted to get to her funeral, but couldn't for some reason. I forget why. But when we went, I mean, Kristen, I've never been to a more diverse experience of faith that had something to do with faith. Yeah. I mean, just theologians, like bloggers, people of color, LGBTQ people across the spectrum. And like, it was the most diverse, I mean, certainly the most diverse funeral I've ever gone to, but like, just even from a religious standpoint, like, it was like seeing the whole of her career as a person and as a writer. It was
also kind of like seeing, because I watched it, even though I wasn't there in person. I believe I had a children's birthday party that weekend, but it was also, to me, like the manifestation of the true kingdom of God. Like it was everyone. Really was. It was inclusive. It was, I mean, as you said, it was all cultures and all, so diverse and so inclusive. And it was just like, but then, it was everyone was there, most people were gathered as believers and praying together. And it was just, it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful.
It was beautiful. Like, it was a really incredible thing to see. And just a testament to her, what she loved and what she did with her talent. And I think that that was really beautiful to see. And so when Rachel was in the hospital, I remember being in the room with her and hanging out with Dan, and Dan, her husband, mentioning to me that Rachel had started working on some children's books, and that, in fact, that she had literally 3 weeks prior to getting sick had just sent them to her agent. And which was, at that point, we thought like she, was going to get out of the bed and finish them herself. And Sally, that didn't happen. And so I remember when my editor said, "Hey, by the way, we are looking at signing Rachel's children's book. Did you know she was writing one?" And then she was like, "And everybody wants you to consider finishing them." And I'll tell you, like, Kristen, and I think you were one of the people that I talked to about this. I wasn't certain that I was the right person. I mean, being the white guy, when Rachel was so much about women and so much about people of color. And so I literally had to kind of seek the affirmation from a few of Rachel's close friends, just to know that to make sure that I was the person that could do this. And I certainly got Dan's blessing and talked to him first. And I'll tell you, it ended up, I had a really hard 2019.
You did.
And writing Rachel's book is the highlight that brought, it was a joy to be able to take her ideas, take her words, and flesh them out and feel them. Like, I mean, just feel them. And so this book is I don't think that there's too many, if there is another book out there like this, that does the things, has the nuances of theology and faith and and childlikeness in it. I can't put my finger on it but there's something special about this book, and it's
well, she's done what she did so well with her other books, which is to put into words the questions and not to be authoritarian in the answers, and to allow for the curiosity and the wonder. It's exactly what she did with her adult books. And I mean, I told you this.
Inclusive and
I told you this years ago, but I do think you were the perfect person, because you've been writing those children's books for the last several years. You have been writing those books, and it's just, I know all of us were just like, this feels so right. Like it made so much sense.
And I did get a lot. I mean, it was the support of my friends that really that kind of just encouraged me to go ahead and do it, because I didn't want to be a burden to the book. I wanted to be, if I was going to come in and be a part of it, I wanted to help it shine as bright as it could, because it was a beautiful idea. And so it is, and it's inclusive. It's the first time I've ever used pronouns for God. And we used all of them, and it is just, it really is Rachel. And I think that is the so far of the people who have experienced it, that's been the biggest comment and the most like encouraging, because they just all say, I don't even know where you're in this. Like it doesn't like it, I sort of was I wanted to disappear in some way. And so it's and it, you know what, I'll tell you this, it's also a lot more fun talking about Rachel's book than it is talking about your own book. Like, because it's like, like you can, I feel like I can be really, I can geek out about it, because I just, it was her idea. And my two things I wanted to do was to write I wanted to keep as many of her words as possible. And I think I ended up keeping all of them. And I wanted to make sure that her spirit of inclusiveness was a part of the process. So like I reached out to several of her theologian friends to offer ideas. A few of them did, some of them weren't able to do it, but it just, I tried to go about how I think Rachel would have gone about doing this book. And it's just, it's a beautiful book. It's both theological and yet it's very whimsical. Like there's just, and then, the illustrator Ying, just, she was so intuitive, and how she presented the wonder in it. It was just really magical. So
and it's beautiful artwork too.
Yes, it really is. Like I'm pretty blown away by it.
So I want to back up for a minute and talk about how you ended up in the genre of children's books, because it was an interesting transition. I mean, I knew you as the guy who, your blog was Jesus Needs New PR.
Yeah.
You were doing very interesting critiques of faith.
Yeah.
Which I loved. I mean, I don't totally remember how we met, but I feel like I stalked you until you became my friend. That's my story in my head. I don't know.
I remember you wrote something about race and adoption that I read. And I think I think we were infatuated with each other a little bit from just like sort of like, like we just sort of, and I think ultimately Jamie Wright introduced,
is that right?
There was something that she shared. She claims that I'm the first person that acknowledged her blog. I don't know whether that's true or not. I feel like
you introduced all of us. To me, maybe, I don't know. You're the connector of half my friends.
Well, I do. I probably was blogging before some of you, but it was it was a community. It was a kind of a growing community. It was back when blogging was fun and all that was just. It was very much a community, and when you found somebody on the internet that agreed with you,
Uh-huh.
that you almost, you felt a connection with them. And
Yeah,
so it was a different time. Like
it
and
was.
I just it was back when it was really enjoyable, and there weren't as many of us. There weren't as many people doing it ongoing over,
No, and we didn't have Facebook or Instagram, and so the comments
right,
happened right there on the post. So you wrote something and then you're dialoguing right there in the comments and you're getting to
right.
know people.
Yeah, totally. And it just like it, I kind of hope, like I like to think that maybe we broke down, we knocked down a few walls for people, like
Yeah.
back in the early days where we kind of took where, I mean, there if we ticked off the Calvinists, like it was like, I
Yes.
mean, you would get inundated. I mean, we would get inundated with like this
Yeah.
negativity, and that we're just so totally outside the norm. And
Yeah.
so like there was just a group of us who deconstructed before it was cool to deconstruct,
Yes.
and we just felt we became friends. And I think
Yeah.
the first time we met in person though was at Brian Elaine's
Killer
conference in
Tribes.
Killer
Yes,
Tribes.
I do
Yeah.
remember
So
that.
yeah.
I do remember
So
that.
anyway, I remember I hit my last book for adults, what came out in
Hmm.
2014, and it sold 700 units. I mean, that number sits in my brain so much. And I worked 18 months on it. Like, I
Which
mean,
book was
it was
that?
our
The
great big
American?
American
Oh,
God.
yes. Uh-huh.
And it was one of those things where I had already kind of started to think that I'm not sure I fit into this world, because like
Hmm.
I've written two books that were memoirs, kind of like had a humor spin to it. And anytime I would read them aloud in front of audiences, like I would get really great feedback, and like people would laugh, and yet like, it just, I remember a guy telling me at a chapel service once that he was like, I'm not going to get in trouble for anything you didn't say, or anything you did say. I'll get in trouble for what you didn't say.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that sort of summed up my whole writing career,
Yeah.
because I just didn't feel the freedom to be, hey, let me tell you this funny story, and let me turn this phrase and make it into an application that just fits into
Yes.
your, I just didn't
Yes.
do that. So
Yeah.
anyway, like when at the same time, I became real discouraged with the publishing world, and then became a father, started reading to my kids, books about faith, and they were so boring, and I found
Yeah.
myself like just kind of skipping words and self-editing in my head, and
Hmm.
and so I just Jessica just told me one day, that I needed to go and try and write a children's book.
Yeah.
And rhyming was one of those things. Like I was the kid who carried around a notebook
Yeah.
of
You
songs.
you're a master rhymer. I mean, I can remember even before the children's books, like you like writing like rewriting the Christmas story.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
you just were really always good at that.
yeah. No, rhyming is one of those things that I really enjoy. Like I enjoy it, and
Hmm.
I was the 14-year-old kid who had a notebook full of terrible lyrics, but they all
Yeah.
rhymed, and
Yeah.
so it it sort of kind of took me writing children's books, kind of took me full circle, and in
Yeah.
my whole writing thing. And so anyway, I started putting down an idea, finally got to a place where I really was proud of an idea, and my agent, who wasn't working with children's books at the time, sent it around to every publisher in town, and
Hmm.
every publisher in town said no.
Which
So,
is that's such a funny story to me too, because
yeah, I mean, Kristen, I was, of course, married at the time, and
mhm.
like I had publishers come back to me and ask if they could put Jessica's name on it, like
So
because
was that it? Was that the issue? It was just it was off brand for you, for
it
your
was off
name.
brand for me. I
Yeah.
guess I had enough of a progressive reputation, and
Yes.
yet, no one else was. There was so few of us who were in that space. We were
Yeah.
still seen as like outsiders, and so like people just they just didn't want to touch me.
Yeah. It's so
And,
funny.
like they wanted, one person said, that I would love to post, I would never get it through like the board. And so Jessica and I decided we self-published the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up selling all the copies that we printed, which were like 5,000, which at the time, I mean, if you know anything about publishing, that's like a big deal. Like
Yeah.
people really did get, that's a lot of books. And anyway, and one of the publishers came back and said, "Hey, let's do this." And yeah, like, I mean, and even then, I don't think I realized, I don't think that I considered it a career. Like, I mean, I hoped it would do well. I mean, in the meantime, while I was in preparation for hoping that my book would get picked up by a publisher, I started writing what would become my first book, When God Made You. And honestly, it was that book, when my editor read that the words to that book, she just freaked out. Like she just loved it, and decided that was when she was gonna bring me on.
Take a risk on you.
Take a risk, yeah, like, and put my name on it.
Which is so funny because I think your books, they're universally appealing.
Yeah.
And I know very conservative Christians who have your books. They don't know who you are.
And that's the thing with children's authors. Like,
yeah,
there are a lot of books that we read that will never go. I'm never going to follow these people. I love their books, but I'm not going to follow them on Instagram. No. Like, I'm not going to but it is it's funny to see how that, like, that book has, I get letters from people who, really conservative people of faith. And, like, I got a letter from, somebody who's like, this is the only book about God that I read to my kid, because she's transgender. And I just, and so it's just pretty cool. And I think that I think my biggest surprise in all of it is just seeing how people connect with children's books. Like, I knew that was a thing, but like I've gotten letters from people who don't have any kids, and they're fighting, in chemotherapy, and they're reading my book every day, before they go to bed, because that's the only, they can't pray. They don't feel like they can pray. Like, so it's a pretty wild to see where books end up.
But they're such touching books. I mean, I've told you this before too, but the joke in my house is that I can't read them. Like they'll bring them to me and I'll get like maybe 2/3 of the way through and I'll just be bawling. Like, there's just a couple lines in each of your book that just hit.
It's it's not like, it's so funny because I like the number of people that say, those are the books that make me cry, or you're the author that makes me cry. Like, I mean, it's such a weird thing to be, but like I guess my thing is I guess I'm a 4 on the Enneagram. And so I like to feel, I mean, I guess I'm a feeler. And so, I guess that kind of just sort of, we've all read books that we wanted to move us, like we would read books as a kid, and like we'd see the cover and it'd be like this, just, oh wow, that's like awesome. And it just, and so like I put a lot of time and space in that, and into every word, and just, if they, trying to find words that connect with me, and if I can do that, maybe, they seem to connect with other people. So.
Well, and I think too, I mean, what you were going through personally as you were writing these books, the overflow of recognizing God's unconditional love. Yeah. That's the part in the books that always gets me,
Totally. I mean, like I remember the exact place when I was writing When God Made You. And this is before, like, I mean, I had sold, 5,000 copies of a book that we self-published. But I remember being in the parking lot of a grocery store, sitting in my car, parked over to the side by myself. And I had I had my phone with me, and I had, for some reason, I had also the words printed out somewhere, and I started writing the idea, the phrase, "So be you, fully you." A show-stopping review. Live your
Yes.
life in full color, every tint, every hue. Discover, explore, have faith, but love more, and learn and relearn all that God made you for. And I remember specifically just weeping and thinking that I may never get to be my full self.
Yeah.
But damn it, if I'm going to try to do and use my career to help other people get free, help other kids not have to follow suit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You're killing me.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, I get that. Like, that is to me, that's the part of your books that are so touching, because I think you are inviting kids to feel that, and I think the way that you've written it, it's going to touch everybody in a different way, and I think where you were coming from, for you personally was different than when I read it. It's personal to me, and, for a different but parallel thing. And, but I just think the invitation to children to like be who you are, and that's what you were created. Like, God created you this way, because isn't that what we're taught? Like, God made us, and therefore all of these shades of ourselves are wonderfully made.
Absolutely. And yet those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, like we would hear that, like we would get that message a little bit, but it would be quickly follow suited with all the things what made us not the perfect creations. Like, it was just such a weird theology. And so like it's, my thing is, I certainly a good book transcends, a good music transcends people's experiences. And so 100%. Somebody who is in a really personal place, like sometimes that book connects with people, and they see it as their own story. And and I think that's anytime you create art that is kind of like, and I've kind of realized this on the back end of it, but like when you're speaking to that, I write a lot to my inner kid. Like, I mean, like I give that. And so sometimes when you're doing that, like that's when the best, your best work comes out, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's so interesting how, your friendship with Rachel and then your, experience writing children's books, kind of converged to put you in this place to help finish her work. But then, you alluded to it, just what was happening for you personally at the same time that you were finishing Rachel's book was just a lot. Yeah.
Jessica and my marriage was, falling apart. We were like trying to, we were in counseling. I was seeing a counselor. She was seeing a counselor. We're seeing a counselor together and dealing with, walking through the questions surrounding my orientation. And it was a lonely, difficult time when Jessica and I were having like really, really hard discussions all of the time. And yet also trying to hold it together for our kids, and like not, being present in those situations, and then knowing that that we were likely to have a really difficult conversation after they went to bed. Like it was just, it was ongoing. And then it ultimately then, with the many months later, we got to a place that we knew what we needed to do. And in that process, it was in those 6 months of like getting to that place where we kind of both got on the same page and knew what we needed to do, just finding the strength and the know how to do it. I was writing Rachel's book, like literally, like this book this book speaks to me.
Mm.
Like I swear I've told Dan a couple times and it sounds stupid, but like I swear there were moments when I felt like I was channeling Rachel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
sure. I'm
just sort
sure.
of you get so and and as like it just that you get so close to something,
Yeah.
and and you've read it over and over and over again, and you almost can feel like I've done this with memoir writing,
Mm-hmm.
where when you're writing a story, you go through it 100 times by the time you're finished it,
Yeah.
and there are moments in that type of writing where you do feel present in it, like you feel like it becomes,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're starting to relive it.
Yes.
And so what is God like brought me hope, like in
Mm-hmm.
the most difficult time of
Mm-hmm.
my life. And it is and now that Jessica and I are we're on the other side of separation and divorce, and me coming out publicly, and we are, I mean, there's grief throughout. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to paint, this has not been a pretty picture
Yeah.
for any stretch of anyone's imagination, but we were trying to do it with do the story well, do this difficult story well,
Yeah.
and do it with grace and love for each other,
Mm-hmm.
um and honesty, letting Jessica letting me tell my story, like me letting
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, giving each other the freedom to just be in that moment, um
Yeah.
and to do that all amid a pandemic, like
Yes.
which in some ways it probably helped us, because it kept us,
Mm-hmm.
like, for a while we were like, we stayed to ourselves, like we were living in different houses by then, but
Yeah.
like because of the safety of our kids, like we leaned on each other in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so it, in some ways it was made it harder, in other ways it made it helped us survive it,
Yeah.
and it is helping us survive it. And so anyway, Rachel's book was the one shining moment in that whole time, that I
Yeah.
can look back on and just feel like I was hearing something good. I
Yeah.
was feeling and experiencing God through Rachel's words. And honestly, like when we announced the book about a month ago, we were blown away by just still 2 years later,
Mm-hmm.
how connected the people who loved her
Yeah.
still are
Oh, yeah.
to her voice, her message,
Mm-hmm.
her story, like, and it's what there are a lot of people who Rachel helped find freedom. And
Absolutely.
what a what a testament, like that
Yeah.
is,
What a
like,
legacy.
like that is a
Yeah.
legacy, like it is a
Yeah.
really beautiful legacy to know that there are so many people, like if you anytime you mention her, somebody is, like
Mm-hmm.
lots of somebodies are going to say,
Mm-hmm.
she was the person who I read helped
Yeah.
me leave a bad marriage, or she
Yeah.
was the person I read and I came out, and she was the person,
Yeah.
like over and over and
Totally.
over again. And
Yeah.
so it is, what an honor, like it's an honor, like honor
Yeah.
to get to play a small role in helping this book come to fruition. So
Yeah. Yeah. You guys did such a beautiful reveal, of just some of her closest friends seeing the cover for the first time, and
yeah,
really
yeah,
emotional.
it really like, and they were like, and there was, yes, we edited it, but those were all legit feels. Like, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
people like
Totally.
were, there's something special about this book.
Yeah.
And so I hope that people continue to connect with it, and
Yeah.
so it's been fun to be a part of. So
Yeah. It's been fun getting to know Dan over the last few years,
Like,
Rachel's husband. I
right.
didn't know him super well. I knew her,
Yeah.
but he's a gem. I mean,
Oh, like
I adore him.
he's like you know, he's been a grace
Yeah.
in this,
Yeah.
like in this grief. There has been this beauty in the sense of just getting to know him and
Yeah.
how hilarious
Yeah.
and deep and talent. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the man is such a good writer. Like, I mean, it just like
Yeah.
there's so many of these little things that, I
Yeah.
mean, I'd met Dan a couple times, and
Yeah.
um, but like I didn't, I know him way better now
Yeah.
than I did. And it just, and that's a testament to him too. Like, never, always wanting to let Rachel be Rachel and do
Yeah.
her thing.
Totally.
They really did in so many ways. She had her thing,
Yeah.
and then when she came home, their life was very simple. Like,
Yeah.
there was a simplicity to it,
Mm-hmm.
and a very country life to
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
very out in the middle of nowhere,
Small town.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
and right. She was. I mean, she was well known for all the like wrong reasons in her small town in a lot of
Yes.
ways, like
Totally.
the troublemaker, or
Yeah.
but like it's just wild to me
Mm-hmm.
how influential a little girl, a woman from
Yeah.
Dayton
Yeah.
became.
Yeah.
To the point where literally yesterday I got an email from Hillary Clinton's people asking me to send her a book. And so
Yeah.
like I mean, just that's
I know.
wild to me.
I know.
So
And she pissed so many people off.
oh,
But
so
what I love is that she always had receipts. You know, she was as knowledgeable about scripture as any of the theologians
oh,
taking her to task. She knew it backwards and
yeah.
forwards, and she had that level of knowledge, you
Mhm.
know, as much as any theologian, but she could disseminate things in such a way that was really applicable and really, you know, it was easy to
Totally.
understand. It was relatable. She was funny. She was so
Oh,
funny.
so funny. And just like, again, she came up at a time
Hmm.
like I literally, one of my favorite stories is like, we did a speaking gig together we did a couple speaking gigs together early on, but our first one was at the Southern Book Festival. I had just released Churched or Hear No Evil, one of those two, and she had released her very first book. And I remember having read her book, having endorsed her book, and like just this, like, I mean, she comes off so strong in her words,
Hmm.
and you meet her and she's like this meek,
Hmm.
like shy person. Rachel grew into her influence. Like,
Yes.
she by the time that 2019 came around, I mean, she was a dynamic speaker.
Yeah.
She like But that was something that she learned. Like, that
Yeah.
was something that she had to get used to. That was not
Yeah.
natural to her. Some of us are kind of like, not me, but like some people are natural speakers, and
Hmm.
they shine in that.
Hmm.
And Rachel shined behind her computer,
Yeah.
writing her book,
Yeah.
and had to learn how to do it from a public standpoint. And
Yeah.
damn,
And
she did.
she didn't want to be an influencer. She,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of people that come to the
Yeah.
table,
Right.
they want to be an influencer. She had a message. She wanted to teach, I think, and share. And
I mean, she was kind of a John the Baptist, like in that,
yes.
like where that she wanted to point people to truth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
point people to, an open table, point people to, the open door, and
Yeah.
get, and like, again, I keep going back to this idea of what a beautiful thing to not only like be that person whose voice and words help people find freedom,
Hmm.
but to be the type of individual who naturally elevated people of color, naturally elevated people who of influence in the gay community, naturally, like she looked for, like she sought that out. Like that was not just, that wasn't lip service. That wasn't something that she would just do on social media. She put like actual words or actual action to those words and thoughts. And we know, I mean, there are people that you and I love and, you know, follow and, you know, like are grateful for now who were, you know, who are around or who have a following or started out because of Rachel. Like, and so it's just a really, really beautiful story of just, I don't know. I certainly would have loved to have seen what she could have done. But I am grateful for what she was able to accomplish.
I know. I found myself just, you know, over the last few years, just, man, I wish Rachel had a think piece right now. I wish I wish I could text Rachel right now. I wish I could know what she's thinking. Like you know, it is, you know, any death obviously is a tragedy and, you know, it's a tragedy for her family, but it's also just such a tragedy for the world to have lost her voice so early.
Oh, like I'm not sure I've ever mourned anybody. With such depth. Like, I mean, I haven't lost a parent. I've lost grandparents and that's it. But like, I felt loss in her story, losing Rachel, like more than I'd ever experienced. And she was on, like, even though she had gotten so far in her career, there was also this anticipation for what was to come. Like she was on the cusp of something even more. You know, entering the conversations in spaces that we, like, Lord knows where she would have ended up. And now just like, I mean, you know, because I'm releasing this book, like I'm privy to all the, all her mentions on social media. And I mean, it's astounding how many people still are quoting her and, you know, discovering her for the very first time. And so it's sort of like, she just, she was wise beyond her years. And just, like, I mean, I think you and I, the fact that we knew her, like it just, it was a privilege for us to have insight, you know, that's kind of behind the scenes.
Such a privilege.
Friendship. So
such a privilege. And she, as you said, she was just so supportive and so encouraging. And, you know, there's so many parts of Rachel that, you know, just by being her friend, as you mentioned, I mean, you know, as soon as I said like, oh, I think I'm going to write a book, you know, she's emailing me her book proposals, which, you know, as writers, like those are tightly held. Like a lot of people won't share that stuff.
Totally.
She's talking numbers to me. She's telling me, like, she's telling me what to do, opening herself up, being so vulnerable, never once seeing any kind of competition, just like, what can I share with you to push you forward? You know, she was so generous that way. And she was so funny. I mean, you know, that's the gift that, you know, I feel like as her personal friend.
Well, we got to see that. We got to see another side. Like, it was, that was the beauty. And
it was so funny.
You know, I think the other thing is how many people how many close friends in our circles who really were pushed out of their comfort zone by Rachel, and they would receive it from Rachel for some dumb reason. Like, I don't know what, like Rachel could influence people that other people just wouldn't even have a chance.
She could.
There was just something about her approach. And
well, I mean, let's be honest, like you and I, we bend a little more sarcastic. We bend like people don't like us,
and we didn't have like the proof links. No. Like we had our feelings. We had our feelings.
So true. It's so true. We had no receipts. We were just going on our feelings.
I mean, once in a while we'd have some sourcing, but it was, but even somebody I remember even somebody like Beth Moore, as conservative circle is Beth Moore, she has had a great respect.
Yeah.
And she admired Rachel and how she did things. And
they encouraged each other and,
totally. And so many people you got pushed into the becoming more affirming because of Rachel. Rachel, there was and I'm not sure I realized this until she died, but a lot of people, she started parts of the progressive movement. She did. She was the person who brought it into 2018 or whatever. Yeah. And, took chances, broke down walls. And honestly is one of the reasons why we have as many female voices in our, Christian progressive culture now. Really, she just, she was a trailblazer and she was 38.
I know. But writing some of these more influential books in her early 30s, right. And to your point, she influenced me. She was one of the big reasons I moved to affirming faith. I wasn't always, we say affirming, I mean LGBTQ affirming, that not just we love, but we affirm, we say yes to
publicly. It was one of those things. I remember I voted against the marriage. I was one of 18 people that voted against the marriage amendment.
So did I.
Yeah. And so,
that's embarrassing.
No. I voted against it.
I did too. Oh, I voted to not have gay marriage.
Oh no, I voted for it. It was in Tennessee. Literally was one of, there was hardly anybody voted for it. So Jessica and I were two of 200 people that anyway, but it wasn't until Rachel came along that I publicly voiced that. Yes. It was this, she put herself out there.
She did. And she went ahead of a lot of us. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Got beat up on a lot.
Yeah, she did.
And in that process, it just we became her, putting herself out there, taking some of that stuff. We just, we needed to step up.
Yeah.
And so
for sure. I think we all became braver because of her. And, she's the person who, for me, it was as you said, I had a feeling that I wanted to be affirming. That was my feeling.
Yeah.
But I couldn't match the feeling to my theology. I couldn't put the two together, and she put them together for me.
Yeah.
She's the one who made me go, oh no, I don't have to abandon either of these things. I can merge them. I can be Christian, I can be Bible believing, and I can be affirming and see how this all comes together. She connected those dots for me.
She never let go of her theological roots.
She did not.
That's what was beautiful about Rachel. I don't know. And I don't, it wasn't it wasn't I am locked down by these roots. She found life in them. She found life in theology. And I think that was her study of theology, I think encouraged a lot of our study because I think that, she had a love of scripture that I may have had as a kid, but she had, up until the day she passed away, there was something very, very real, even though she fought for all the things.
Yeah.
And, received a whole bunch of criticism from all the people. And so it just, but it is, I think that there will be certain number of people, who will be studying what Rachel did years and years from now. So it's, because I think she helped. We weren't really talking about the deconstruction movement before Rachel. But
I don't think there was one.
Right. It was not a movement.
No.
She helped push that forward.
Yeah.
Like, I think that she will certainly, history will certainly see her as one of those voices that made that possible.
Yeah, I agree. And what an honor to have known her.
An honor. What an honor.
And I mean, I know I speak for many, but I'm just very grateful that you are putting her voice back out, you know, that you've been a part of reanimating and, you know, bringing back something of Rachel, you know, for so many of us. I cannot wait.
I really truly cannot wait for people to experience it. Like, I think that it will be, you know, just it will be a beautiful experience for them to read her story to their kids. So,
and it'll be another book that I'm unable to read out loud. So
probably
unable.
So.
I know already. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for chatting with me.
I feel like it's been so cool just to kind of catch up.
I know,
even though it's on a podcast, but I
know.
Thank you.
We could talk for hours about lots of things.
So many things.
Good to see you, friend.
Good to see you too. Alrighty. Thank you.
Bye.